Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you are just tuning in from wherever you are tuning in from the world, welcome to Leading Edge Impact Youth Forum, which is brought to you by Coaches of Influence Foundation, which is a youth and women's organization headquartered in the USA, and in partnership with Global Youth Leaders Network, which is also a youth organization headquartered in South Africa. Our discussion this morning will be centered on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And this year, the UN celebrated 75 years. They are celebrating 75 years since their establishment, since its establishment. And a prominent item on their agenda is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which were established to serve as the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all humanity. And these SDGs were adopted as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people of the earth enjoy peace and prosperity in this decade that we have just welcomed. And consequentially, the focus for this forum today also is from SDG 8, which is focusing on decent work and economic growth. And the topic of discussion on the table, we are in flight, we are seated in first class, and we have a round table discussion today. And the topic of discussion on this table is effective youth participation in economic growth. Listen, we are not waiting 1 minute longer. We are ready to dive deep into this conversation. And to kick it off, we are going to hear from one of our dynamic guests, all the way from Guyana, all the way in Guyana, South America. This is where this guest is coming from. We go to all continents, all nations of the world. This is Coaches of Influence Foundation and Global Youth Leaders Network. Is the Honorable Aston Collins available? Is Honorable there? Honorable, you are welcome to this red table, to this red carpet. I mean, we have laid the table. Everybody was waiting on you. We cannot wait to hear what you have in store for us coming all the way from Guyana, South America. Welcome, Honorable.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Earlier we had some issues with the internet, so I decided to come outside to see if it's going to be better because the building was blocking the signals or so. But I hope it's better now.
It's a little bit better, and we hope it gets even better because you have a lot to bring to us, and we are all eager, we are all excited. We are so hungry. We came to this table hungry. Look, it's early morning for me where I am. I haven't even had breakfast yet. But I know one thing: before I leave this platform, I will go full to the brim. You know what? Let me tell the viewers about you a little bit, Honorable Dr. Astel Collins. You are one of Guyana's distinguished youth ambassadors, and you are also a UN Goodwill Ambassador. Dr. Collins, you are also the CEO of Better Defined One, which is a brand known in the Caribbean and South Africa as BD1 Leadership. You were appointed as the special envoy representative to the government of Guyana on behalf of the United States Global Leadership Council. And you were also assigned as to the Director General, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Hammond, at the Ministry of the Presidency in Guyana. In 2019, you were awarded with the Nelson Mandela Peace Award. Additionally, Mr. Axel Collins, Dr. Honorable, you were among 17 global influencers that were featured in my book, Influence 2, Legacy Beyond the Grave. Honorable Collins, we can go on, but I want to formally welcome you to the table of dialogue.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Honorable Collins, your central focus is gender-based violence. And you will talk to us about the effects of gender-based violence on the economy.
Yes.
Gender-based violence, let's dive in. Let's go ahead and dive in.
I would first like to start with what I've researched, and it says that gender-based violence is a phenomenon deeply rooted in gender inequality and continues to be one of the most notable human rights violations. Within all societies, gender-based violence is violence directed against a person because of their gender. Both women and men experience gender-based violence, but the majority of victims are women and girls. Gender-based violence and violence against women are terms that are often used interchangeably, as it has been widely acknowledged that most gender-based violence is influenced or inflicted rather on women and girls by men. And that is what the research says. But my experience goes beyond that. Um, Dr. Margaret Arie, are you hearing me clearly still?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Excellent. Um, there was an image. Well, I've done close to 1,000 seminars in Guyana since my return from South Africa. And one of the images I always use is it looks like a ceramic woman with a child, but she's broken, and the child has a piece of her trying to push her back, whilst the man is looking on the balcony, looking away from the tragedy that he has just committed. And I believe that um, encapsulates the very image that our child, our children, the next generation. That's why I love the fact that we're dealing with youth. Those that are upcoming are the ones who are tasked, gifted, um, to actually mend that which was broken. But if we are not given the necessary tools to do such, then the cycle continues. And I believe that what helps us to mitigate this sickness, this phenomenon that has plagued us for so long, is taking the journey of self-discovery, where we can identify who we are, our tags, our talents, abilities, gifts, and strengths. Because it's like if you're going on a voyage, you're going on a sea journey, you cannot control the wind, you cannot control the storm.
Right.
What helps you through is your ability to navigate and sail. So we
Mm.
cannot necessarily control the man's mentality towards gender-based violence or anyone for that matter, but we can control ourselves. And I believe that that is where it starts. There's a saying that said, "It is not what you're called, but rather what you're answered to." And this goes. I want to deviate a little bit from not gender-based violence, but to let us expose violence. And we have a connotation that when someone says violence, they usually conjure up the ideas of physical activity or somebody hitting you physically. But let us go beyond that and see that you can speak. Like right now, there is this thing called cyberbullying,
Mhm.
and people can be extremely violent in cyberspace on Facebook. So you don't have to literally be hit to experience violence. There is
Mhm.
emotional violence, there's psychological violence, and then there is obviously physical violence. But what insulates you from that is having a sense of being, having a sense of who you are. You know, it was Dr. Carter Woodson, and I always try to quote him because it really captures our mental agility and our mental state that we ought to be in. You and he said, you cannot control a man's thinking. No, Doctor, Doctor.
I can hear you.
I lost you. Okay. Dr. Carter will say, if you can control a man's thinking, you don't have to concern yourself with what he will do. So it really goes to how do we think ultimately, and gender-based violence. I believe, I don't want to say it's incurable, but I believe we can navigate the effects of it by understanding who we are, by taking the journey of self-discovery, by identifying our tags, our talents, abilities, gifts, and strengths, so that we can answer the call to who are you, why are you here, and what is the destiny that made you necessary. Most people who endure or allow themselves to continually be in an environment that is violent is asking simple questions. Do you see me? Do you hear me? And do I matter? So I believe that this is the generation that will usher this new dispensation where we can literally be what we were created to be and don't settle for less than God's intended best. So I believe that we we have to literally go and seek the necessary tools to identify our giftings and, literally give all of ourselves, because the journey is really self-discovery to self-mastery. When we would have identified who we are and then become servants and not be generational thieves to this time in our generation, because all of us were gifted to give to this generation that which we are.
Thank you so much, Honorable Collins. I picked up a few nuggets from when you were speaking, and the couple that stood out for me are: you can't control a man's thinking. If you cannot control a man's thinking, then you don't have to concern yourself with what he will do. And what I get from that is we cannot manage others, but we can manage ourselves. And when we manage ourselves well, we teach people how to handle us, and we teach people how to deal with us. Thank you so much. And the truth is this: when we talk about gender-based violence, we usually think the male versus female.
Yes.
But in our world today, we see violence occurring between people of the same gender. For example, there are certain stereotypes that are attached to males in a particular career and vice versa. If you find a lady in aviation, they may be dealing with stereotypes. You find a gentleman in maybe administrative assistant role, they may have to go deal with certain stereotypes. So with that in mind, what do you want to say about that to help us clear the air?
And you see, it takes courage to be you. Most of us, because of we in our country right now, the nurses are striking, and you have a lot of male nurses. And the thing is, there was a time you would believe that nurses is relegated only to females, and so you have to have this. That's why I'm saying it goes back to your sense of purpose and being, the reason for your being. Why are you here? What is the reason what is the reason for your existence? Why, out of 600 million sperm cells, the divine selected, chosen, and anointed you to be? So you have to be courageous to literally embrace all that you are and refine who you are, and then serve yourself to society and humanity. So I believe that it takes courage to, in spite of the stereotypes, transcend it and serve humanity with a degree of honesty and authenticity that, you know, there was a friend of mine that says you have to write something that is worth reading with your life and do something that is worth writing about, so that you will never be forgotten. We are, fleeting in this, what we call time, but we are usually eternal beings. There's a pulse where we deposit it in time to make a deposit, and then we transcend again. So my belief is that it takes courage for us to transcend, but first it starts with taking the necessary time to discover who you are. Only then can you, because you see, people, when you don't know who you are, you become a canvas, and people ascribe their idea of who you ought to be to you. So you live precariously, and you live between the vicissitudes of their ideologies and philosophies of what they think you should be. So you're cocooned into a mold that they have created for you. The only way you can be liberated from that, liberated from the stereotype, is for you to discover who you are and be true to that. I know our time is very limited, but so I'm not going to ramble on.
I am enjoying this conversation, and I picked up another nugget that you have to be courageous. You have to find yourself. Young people, I hope you are listening. I hope you are listening, young people. Above all odds, the odds of the internet challenge for Honorable Dr. Astel Collins, he had to step outside and stay in his car so he can give us these nuggets. I hope you are listening, because I'm picking some nuggets for myself. He said, you have to be courageous. You have to find yourself. You have to find who you are. And when you do, you will be able to manage situations around you and be able to serve humanity with impact. I think that is so powerful.
You
Honorable
know,
Collins,
it
considering
was
our topic, go ahead.
Dr. Maya Angelou says courage is the most important of all virtues, because without courage, you cannot practice any other virtue consistently. So it begs the question: why would I live my life in contravention to God's intended plan, to God's intended purpose? Because whatever He has called me to and for, He has not only positioned but equipped me to do it. So that's why there's a degree of fulfillment. We are frustrated when we are living a life in contravention to God's or the divine's intended plan and purpose. So the only way for us to live a life of fulfillment is when we discover, when we take the necessary time. It was Mother Teresa who says, "I am the pen in the hand of a loving God, writing this world a love letter." So, am I an extension of the divine? We've been often told that the spirit is within the body, but then they have discovered that the body is within the spirit, because the spirit literally cannot be contained, and we are indeed the essence and the manifestations of God. That's what it says. Um, you are a peculiar people, a holy nation, God's special possession. You are the light of the world, the salt of the earth. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you may visit him? For you have made him a little lower than yourself. We have relegated ourselves to this mundane existence when we are called to walk in the divine. When people say, he is wonderful, she is wonderful, it's like you literally leave them awestruck because of the wonder of who you are, of what you are capable of becoming. And we should not, because, I studied medical technology, but what I'm doing today has nothing to do with medical technology. So it also begs to have not only courage, but the willingness to course correct, where you said, this is what I thought I was supposed to do, but I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being. And my essence is so much more than what I've studied for. And that's the thing with being educated and being certified, because education comes from the Greek word eduko, which is to be led out of. So what am I being immersed in so that I can reveal all that I am? The difference between a pebble and a diamond is that the diamond is more valuable because the diamond is rare. But we have allowed ourselves to become common or cheap copies of great originals, never allowing ourselves to discover all that we are so that we can be the greatest expression of who we are. So we have settled for less than God's intended best. Growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. And to me, when I talk, there's a seminar done with abuse, which is more similar to violence. But it is not what is done to us, but what is self-inflicted. Because my unwillingness to discover who I am allows myself to be abused. That's where they have the word evil, is when you live, Live, EVIL is when you live backwards, when you live in contravention to God's intended plan for your life. So you have to literally take time to understand who you are. Only then can you transcend the maladies and the isms that society so readily ascribed unto us. I know you paused it
Awesome.
multiple times.
I'm learning. I'm learning. And I like what you stated. Young people, I hope you're listening. He said education means, what am I led out of? Oh my goodness. Education is not supposed to cage us. It's supposed to liberate us. What am I led out of? So if any of you are seeking education, seeking knowledge, seeking training, so you can position yourself for employment, always ask yourself, with this education that I have pursued, with this degree that I am pursuing, with this training program that I am going after, what am I going to be led out of when I complete this program, when I complete this degree? And I think that will help you to start putting your future into perspective.
Well,
Thank you so much, Dr. Collins.
you know
So
that
continuing, go ahead.
it was Albert Einstein who says education is not learning facts. It's rather training your mind to think.
That's right.
Most of us refuse. They said the hardest thing a man will ever do is think. We think ourselves into problems. We think ourselves out of problems. But the hardest thing we'll ever do is think. You have to train your mind. The Bible says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your greatest asset is not the rhythm of your wine, but your mind. They say, I don't want to knock any women, but you spend more on your head rather than in your,
Oh, I hear you. I hear
so
you. But,
when
but
I
you know,
lived in
I'm
South
not going
Africa,
there with you.
yeah, when I lived in South Africa, they had a documentary called Good Here. So
Mm,
you were socialized to think that what you have was not good enough. So you spend what you have not earned to buy what you cannot afford to impress who you don't like or who don't like you. So this cycle of poverty and violence is really, it starts from us. Because
right.
you know, they say you dress to be addressed, but you teach people how to treat you. So if you don't know who you are, if you don't value who you are, if you don't have a sense, you said that's what the thing is, self-esteem. We should not get the estimated worth and value of ourselves from somebody else.
Mhm.
We are looking outside of ourselves for what is buried within us. So life is really the great unveiling of our talents, abilities, gifts, and strengths. And when we take the necessary time, and that is what education ought to complement, you taking the necessary time to refine that gift that you are and serve it to humanity. But when you confine your life to just a paycheck, you literally become a prostitute where you sell your gift to the highest bidder. So it's no longer about what am I supposed to do? It's how much am I to be paid for what I do.
Mm,
So remember, your work is different from your job. Your
that's
job is
right.
what you train to do. Your work is what you're born to do. Your job is your career, but your work is your life's assignment. You can be hired and fired from your job, but never your work. Finding your work protects you from the imprisonment of a job. So my charge to our youth is to understand who you are. And then you becoming what you were created to be would allow you to transcend the boundaries even of your geographical location. I lived in South Africa, not because of what I studied, but because of what I became. And when you
Mm.
become a person of value, there is a demand for you. I was told to make my voice invoiceable. So you have to become someone that has content so that when you speak, they're not rhetoric, but they're time tested principles that can be applied to any generation, any gender, any geographical location. And I believe for us to transcend the limitations and the boundaries of violence, which I believe starts from within, is for us to know who we are. They said a lion remains in cage and in captivity because the food is free. Most of us remain in the enslavement of our job because the paycheck is guaranteed. So how do we transcend that and become a person of value? It is to discover who we are.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. And please place your phone on mute so I don't echo back.
Okay.
Thank you. So, considering our topic of discussion, which is effective youth participation in economic growth, what do you think are the effects of gender-based violence on the economy?
Please repeat that.
Considering our topic, which is
Right.
effective youth participation in economic growth, what do you think are the effects of gender-based violence on the economy?
If I am viewed and treated as less than I am, then I cannot be the best that I can be. So even that disposition allows me not only to be mediocre in my work, but even the job that I seek would be far less than what I'm capable of. So it affects the economy because I am not giving my best. I am not using and engaging my mind, my talents, my giftings to promote, to transcend, to advance the economy. I am literally becoming a parasite. And hence this concept of, and you know, in the time of COVID, one has to be mindful of the limitations that COVID has brought upon not only various countries, but the world. So a lot of things are shifting and we're forced. A lot of people have to work from home because of the safety concerns. But you literally have to reinvent not only yourself, but to take a fresh look at the economy. So I believe the impacts are clear, whereby if I am not in a position of not necessarily authority, but empowerment, where I'm not empowered to make certain decisions. I am literally relegated to accepting what is before me rather than literally taking the necessary steps to channel and navigate the vicissitudes of the economic uncertainties. So I believe gender-based violence, and if we to go back to what it really is if I am experiencing violence, not only at my job, but in the community, in the society, on social media, I am less than my best and thus cannot give my best. So I will be compensated based on what I am given, not to the value and the work that that I potentially can. So I believe that the impacts of gender-based violence is crucial and has a greater impact. And like I said before, how we transcend this is to discover who we are and then serve at a higher level. And then to most times we believe that because I studied this, I am employed X, that is all I can do. That is a sum total of my existence. But when I am free to be me, I can actually identify other economic streams. So I don't pressure one particular stream of income or one job to give me what it has not or what it is not supposed to give me. But if I supplement my income, I can give to that job what it requires, what I'm paid for. They they usually say you ought to be paid for the solutions you bring, and not necessarily for what you think you deserve, but the solutions you bring. What solutions are you bringing? And the thing is, we have in this new dispensation, not only with gender-based violence, but with the COVID, is how do you transcend the limitations that have been placed upon you? And how do you creatively use the tools that is at your disposal to supplement your income and the economy?
Well, thank you so much, Honorable Collins. We really appreciate you for sharing such valuable information with us. You are a man of honor and a great asset to yours and even the younger generation. You have reminded us today that if we take care of each other, together we will build a strong economy. If we take care of ourselves, if we invest in self to build the self-esteem, to build our courage, to build our inner strength, we will be able to manage the gender-based violence that we are exposed to, that people try to bring to us. If you walk into a workplace, if you walk into a school, if you walk into a club, into an association, with so much confidence of who you are, and you are bringing solution to the table, not a consumer, but you are a solution. I mean, that violence finds its way going down quickly because people see value in you and you are able to stand strong and stand against every wind of opposition. Honorable Dr. Collins, thank you so much. And please extend our love, our greetings to everyone in Guyana. And we appreciate you for even stepping out of the comfort of your house to stay outside in your car just so you can have good internet and be able to connect with us and speak with us. We appreciate you, sir. We thank you so much. And we hope to see you next time. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you for having me.